What's up, y'all? It's Charlotte Kevin, and this is a discussion video, or if you will, Spellung video. The word Spellung in Old English means discussion, because the word spell on its own, it has many meanings, but one of its main meanings is message, or because it's related to the verb spellian, which means to discourse, to talk, if you will, because you didn't have the word talk back then. Anyway. This video is going to be about Old English and Old Saxon. Some of you have the idea that they're interchangeable, that there's not much difference between the two, and this is what I'll discuss and why people think that, and go into a little history of actually I'll start with a little history of how these Germanic a brief history of how these Germanic languages formed and all that. Okay, so let's go back in time. Going back to Proto-Germanic. Okay, this is long before Old Norse, long before Old High German. Proto-Germanic, and it just branched out of Indo-European. Okay, so the thing is, I'm gonna say this stuff very slowly because it's a lot to take in. And like if you're studying linguistics or you already know a bit about linguistics already, some of this may be a review for you. But for those of you who don't have a background in linguistics, whether academically or not, just just bear with me, okay? So we have Proto-Germanic, and then from Proto-Germanic, what branched off out of that was North Germanic, West Germanic, East Germanic. Yeah, so that's what I think. So North, East, yeah, and West. Okay, in the North Germanic languages is where we get Old Norse, and then from Old Norse it splits into Old East Norse, then Old West Norse. Then you have West Germanic. Okay, now West Germanic is interesting because it splits off into even further of more diversity, because within West Germanic you have three distinct groups. Okay, you have the I think Irminonic, which is where Old High German came from, and its many dialects of, and Old High German is what evolved into what we know now as German, High German, if you will, or Althochdeutsch, as they would say in German. Anyway, so then that's that group within West Germanic. Then with West Germanic, you have another group called Istvionic, is where we get Old Dutch, and that's where we get all the Flemish and whatnot, all those languages. So it's all the Dutch-oriented languages. Okay, and then finally, we have my favorite group, the Ingvionic languages. Okay, that's where we get Old Frisian, Old Saxon, and Old English. Okay, it's within that group. But why do we have these names of the groups? Ingvionic, Istvionic, and Irminonic. We get these terms from Tacitus, or if you will, Tacitus, in his diary. No, was it his diary? Well, it was kind of his. He wrote about the Germanic tribes. All right, and well, even though he wasn't actually in the Germanic areas, it was from secondhand viewpoints he received this from. Anyway, so that's how he groups the tribes. That's why you have the Ingviones, Istviones, and Irminones. Anyway, so I just want to give that as a prelude to understand these Germanic languages and their diversity. Now, going to Old Saxon and Old English. Well, let's go over Old Saxon. What is Old Saxon? Now Old Saxon is a language from the as we went over, the Ingvionic, as part of that group of languages, and therefore it has a lot of similarities with Old English and Old Frisian. However, the Saxons themselves, yeah, a lot of them went to England, but not all of them. a lot of them stayed in northern Germany. Their language descended into what we know now as Plattdeutsch, or if you will, I like to call it modern Saxon, but then that gets into politics. But let's not go there. Yeah. So thing is, to give you some differences between the two is that well, thing is, why do people think Old Saxon and Old English are very similar? Well, I think what they're really getting at is the West Saxon dialect of Old English. Now, the West Saxon dialect of Old English, yes, if you go further back, it is very much like Old Saxon. In fact, I would speculate that Old Saxon was spoken in Old English, sorry, in England. You know, when these early Saxons came to England, they kept speaking their Old Saxon. It's only until when the kingdoms emerged in England that Old English really emerged. Okay, so yeah, that's something to bear in mind. And so it has a lot of vestiges of Old Saxon within West Saxon of Old English. There are. Okay, I'll give you some examples of differences. Okay, so we have, to say good morning in Old English is, and oh boy, I have to change the battery. 1 second, please. And there we go. Okay, so now we're back. Alright, so the difference between Old Saxon and Old English is that to say good morning in Old English is Godna Morgen. Okay, Godna Morgen. Yeah, because the G is a Grendel G, it's a R sound. And words like that evolved into morrow, sorrow, burrow. Back 1,000 years, it was like a R sound. It was a velar voiced fricative G that used linguistic terms. But in Old Saxon, the thing is, Old Saxon is a guttural language, a much more guttural language than Old English was. Oh yeah. I mean, it's more sounds, a very aggressive language. And it makes sense because if you live in the cold, I mean, you want to rely on someone's word, you have to sound like that. But I guess as life as living conditions get better, so less need for all that rough and gruff. I would think so. This is my speculation. I could be wrong, but hey, which could explain why in Latin languages in Southern European places where the languages are based off vowels, because when you're in the sun, you don't have to sound so aggressive. It sounds very musically. Well, to be fair though, I mean, modern German sounds very musically as well. I mean, take a look at Beethoven. Anyway, so we have Gode Morgen, morgen in Old English, Godana Dag in Old Saxon. Yeah, that sounds much more guttural. Yeah, because you had more guttural G's and whatnot, and yeah, that's something to bear in mind. That Old English and Old Saxon, they're very similar, in the context that if you were to compare the West Saxon dialect to Old Saxon, yes, I mean you could almost. I don't like what I'm going to say, but like with the early West Saxon, if you go far back enough, yeah, I mean you could call it a dialect of Old Saxon, but I wouldn't go that far. I mean, some people may, but anyway, to give you other examples. In Old Saxon, father is fadar, or in Old English is fader. You didn't have ash in Old Saxon. It's only till much later in you didn't have ash. And what is ash? Ash is that weird character has like A-E put together, makes an ass sound. Anyway, you didn't have that in Old Saxon. It was only until later when the Anglo-Saxon monks and the Anglo-Saxon mission came to Old Saxon in an attempt to convert them to Christianity. I'll give you another example. Well, thing is, not many people know this, but yeah, if you go really far back with West Saxon, the F is actually could be a V sound. So it could be fader, yeah, or vader, just as in Old Saxon, it could be pronounced as an F or a V. And later, because we know this, especially with the Old Saxon part, that later words like vader, no, sorry, I shouldn't roll the other, vada, which is father in and Plattdeutsch. Just as, spoiler alert, Darth Vader, Vada, Luke, I'm your father, duh. Anyway, yeah, sorry about that. Mind blown, I know that. Anyway, give you another example of this well, an English example, where the word fox in Old English was fox, but it was also it's also in the Saxon area, so it was pronounced vaux, and you can even see this in later English. I think in the 17th or 18th century, where fox was spelt with a V, so vaux. But But the thing is, this wasn't all over England. This is just mainly concentrated was what was then the Saxon areas. So I'm talking about West Country, Devonshire, and other places in England. I mean, my English geography isn't that great, but anyway, example. Yeah, if you look at like 18th century, 19th century, 19th century Devonshire poetry, you'd see things like the bist, which is kind of weird to see because, why is that? Another difference, or I should say similarity, is that in the West Saxon dialect of Old English, you had the th was a th sound, hence a voiced th, and you had that too in in Old Saxon, because that sound evolved into a d sound. So that's why we have in later English thou hast, in Plattdeutsch du hast. Well, just as in High German as well, du. Yeah, because the thing is, around this period, everyone said du. Well, mostly everyone said du, except for the Anglian dialects in Old English. They said thu. They said thu. Yes, and some of the, I'm not too sure about. I'm just thinking now about modern Icelandic. They say thu, not thu. But I would think that around this period, that the Scandinavian North Germanic languages, they had thu, because in modern Danish and other modern Scandinavian languages, apart from Icelandic and Faroese, that thu became thu became du. Anyway, that was a big tangent. But to give you another example of Old English, you have West thu hal, which is be thou well. In Old Saxon, that'll be with thu hel, with thu hel. It's the same thing, because the thing is, the further you go back with languages in history, the more similar they are. That's something to bear in mind. All right, and the fact that it's all within the Germanic family, Ingvaionis and all that. Give you another example. I know I'm sound like I'm rushing and whatnot because the battery's going to die again soon. Oh dear. Okay, so anyway, if you want to say your name in Old English, it would be Ichhata. That's cognate to modern Ichhaisa. But in Old Saxon, you would say ikhetu, ikhetu. Yeah, so it's similar in that regard. I mean, it's still you saw the yeah, and in variants of spelling as far as Old Saxon goes, you do have ic for ik or ik. Yeah, that's something to bear in mind too. I mean, oh god, I have 1 minute left. Oh dear. Alright. Gotta go. See you again. Bye bye. And we're back. Okay, so Old Saxon and Old English, yeah, they have their similarities, but they have their very differences. In Old Saxon, or you could say early Old English, that they like to represent W. Sometimes it was just a U. And then later became two U's, hence double U. It's W, two U's. That's one thing I would say, and more archaicisms you'd find in Old Saxon. But there's another important thing about Old Saxon, I have to say. There is no letter X in Old Saxon. That's right, no letter X. So I guess I speculate that, in order to get the closest letter to that sound in Old Saxon would be H, be the H sound, because it's closest, I guess, to a X sound, I guess. Yeah, I'll give you an example, actually. We have the word fax. Fax well, the word fax today, we know it as a fax machine to send messages to people. But if you go back 1,000 years, the word fax meant hair, or I guess the mane of a horse, I suppose. Like that, hence place names like Halifax, holy hair, or I guess, or mane. I think it means mane, but I know it for sure has to do with hair. So in Old English, there's fax, but in Old Saxon is fax. Fax. So Fahs. Yeah, there's that. Yeah, so Old Saxon and Old English, they have their differences, but where people say, oh, Old English is like Old Saxon, yeah, that's only true to an extent, more so with the West Saxon dialect of Old English. Okay? But anyway, if you want to learn Old Saxon, I do teach that on another channel called Learning Old Germanic Languages. There I have a playlist of a number of Old Saxon videos you can learn from. And another thing too, if you want to learn a modern a modern dialect that descends from Old Saxon, you can check out my third channel called Learning Lesser Known Germanic Languages, where I touch on Westphalian Saxon. Yes, that's obviously the western part of Old Saxony, as if it were. But yeah, I mean, it goes to show how like some of the dialect is still around today, and give you one little snippet that I found really fun to find out. In this dialect I'm talking about, I think it was in the 1800s or so, the D in middle of words was a TH sound, which is like weird to see because normally a TH sound on the continent had been most of the time you read about it's evolved, but yeah, it's weird to see that how that survived, and it makes you think what else has survived up till that point. I mean, folklore stories, idioms, and so I mean I find this all stuff fascinating because we can learn more about the pagan past, and one way to do that is through language. So yeah, I hope you guys found this useful, insightful, very educational. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe. I make videos whenever I can, and I upload videos every Saturday and sometimes surprise me throughout the week. And if you want to help the show financially, please become a patron at my Patreon page down below. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.